Solutions, episode number one. I am Arelthia Phillips, founder of Pintop Solutions, LLC.
And I'm Kerry Carron, founder of Ultimate Solution LLC. Today's topic is 5 frequently asked questions about web designers versus web developers.
Okay, Carrie, so let's just go ahead and jump in with our first question for today. First question for today, what's the difference between the two, 2D?
Well, the difference between web designers and developers for me comes down to some of the opportunities that are available to each and the specific work that each of them, the tasks that each of them do during their phases of putting things together.
Okay.
What do you
Um, I think for me, the difference between the two, between a designer and a developer, is the way they look at things. From a designer standpoint, they're trying to solve the problem of um, the look. Does it look and feel the way it needs to? For the developer, they're looking at it from a standpoint of, does it function the way it needs to? Does it work the way it's expected to work? And that's what I think the difference is between a designer and a developer.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the tasks that each of them do, and I think it's going to become very clear to our audience how those tasks differ and how a designer is looking at, what things look like versus maybe how the developer is looking at how things are working. So,
Okay.
what's the main thing that comes to your mind when you think of a web designer?
When I think of a web designer, the first thing that comes to my mind is um, someone that has an eye for color and how something looks together. That's the first thing that I think of. They're all about how it looks. They're into the typography. They're into the color theory and all that behind the design of the website.
I would agree. And for those listening that might not know what typography is, that is the different, very detailed intricacies of font and what your text looks like, the style of your text, the spacing of your text, the
Yeah.
height, width of all of the letters within that text. And that can be extensive. That's like a whole opportunity for being a designer, pretty much all just by itself if you wanted it to be.
Yeah, I think because it seems like when you're talking to someone that is really into typography and the text and the type and the different font categories and how the text align and how you mix different fonts together to get that look that's just right. Um, Now, when you're talking about a designer, Carrie, do you think that as a designer, they also have to consider things like maybe the usability of a site?
Oh, I think so. I definitely think so. I think I kind of made a list of things in my mind of things that I think that designers do, and interface design, how a user uses it, I think definitely comes into play. Layout is something that comes into play. Graphic design. Those are the main things that I think of when I think of a web designer. And I don't know, I kind of fill a role it's kind of a combination of the two, but there's a definite difference from what I'm doing when I'm designing versus what I'm doing when I'm developing. And I saw this really great infographic today, just happened to come across it while I was looking up some other stuff. And the progress after signing contracts and securing the job or the project, it said, you come up with the layout, the design that gets approved, and then it transitions from what you've put onto paper and how it looks, and then you turn and kind of go into the development side of things where you start making sure that the image that you wanted in the upper right hand corner, gets placed in the upper right-hand corner and that sort of thing. So that part of it is, in my mind, the tipping point between design and development.
Okay. So let's flip for a moment and talk about that development aspect. Um, as a developer, I think that certain things come into play. Like, for example, if as a developer you receive a design and you're looking at it from a standpoint of, okay, so how does each part of that design function? How do the different parts interact to accomplish the overall goal for the website? And so it's the interesting thing is that it's kind of along the same lines as in how you look at it from some in some aspects, because as that developer you're thinking, okay, so this is what someone's going to come to the website to do, this is how they expect it to work,
Right.
and so it ties in that look also from the design standpoint into that functionality. So it's all about how the different pieces fit together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. And where I talked about the tipping point from design to development, I think development kind of picks up at that tipping point and then switches over to, just like you're saying, you know, if there's a form in it, what has to happen with the information in that form? It goes much more into detail and into depth for connecting all of the pieces.
Yes, I agree. It's interesting because I think um, it was Treehouse who had a post recently about how, as a designer, recently, there's really been this kind of divide between designer and developer, and people are more classified. It used to be designer and developer meant the same exact thing. And then people got to the point where they started saying, oh no, I'm a designer, I'm a developer, especially as we grow, especially with WordPress growing and everything, and websites becoming more and more dynamic. There seems to be this divide, this line being drawn down the middle.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's definitely morphed, for lack of a better term, into two completely different things, although there is some overlap. Now, I talked about from the design aspect of it, and I definitely align myself much more closely with the design side of things versus the developer side of things, although I do like to, continue to push myself in the development side of things as well. However, so we talked about graphic design, interface design, even authoring and including standardized code, user experience, and search engine optimization. That's sometimes, built into the design. So what are some of the opportunities you think being a developer has the greatest potential for business growth right now?
As a developer, it's interesting because and I'll start with SEO because that's the one I'm going to spend the least amount of time talking about, but that's where I'm going to start at, because when it comes to SEO, a lot of that on-page SEO with the schema and the page structures and things like that happens somewhat at the developer level with the coding and everything and how that's set up. Also, accessibility is big right now in development, to ensure that your websites are accessible to people using things like screen readers and things like that. That is a big opportunity. Also in development, with the web growing more and more, and yes, we're primarily talking like websites, whether it's a WordPress website, but even Matt Mullowig talked about how WordPress is growing into, he sees WordPress going more into web apps. And so that's going to be a big opportunity for developers in the area of developing web applications, because the web, it's a platform that allows you to be accessed through different devices, regardless of the type of device. These days, it's web-based. So that's a big opportunity. And with the platform, there are so many different platforms you can choose from. So it's, as a developer, you just basically choose the platform that you want to work with, and then I say function on that. Um,
So do you think it's in someone's best interest who's maybe just starting out, but they know that they're more aligned with the developer side of things, to pick a particular platform and learn that and then move on to the next one?
yeah,
Or do you think it's better to have a broad range of skills?
I think it's best to find a platform and grow in that platform and be known for working in that platform. And then you can branch out or pivot if needed in a different direction. But definitely focus.
I agree. The same holds true, I think, for being a designer. And that's kind of where I started too. You know, I found Builder by iThemes, which I absolutely love. Everybody knows I love Builder because I'm the Builder gal. But that doesn't mean that I can't, now that I understand and can use Builder as well, doesn't mean that I can't cross over and work in something like Genesis or the default WordPress themes, or basically any theme, because once you understand how things are structured, there's a lot of similarities.
Yes, yes, and especially when it comes from a design standpoint, when you're thinking about the different themes, pretty much it's the same idea across the board. Even in development, um, there's like this similarity where, in, let's say, my primary focus is with PHP. That's my primary language that I work in server side. So I do a lot of WordPress based PHP, but then I do some pure PHP as well. It's all PHP, but it's slightly different.
Hmm.
So it's all related. That's my focus. That's my focus area.
That's neat. Okay, I want to move a little bit forward. Um, do you find in the web designers and developers that you know, I know that you and I are both involved in a pretty large WP network. Um, do you find that freelancers are finding ways to work in teams covering the different aspects of the design process, with different team members maybe covering each other's strengths and weaknesses and working together?
Yeah, I think that's happening out of necessity. As we move, as we grow, and the more we grow, we learn what we really need. Because when we first start out, first of all, we think we don't know anything. Then we start to learn a little bit, and as we learn a little bit, the more you learn, the more you realize there's a lot you don't know.
Oh, I agree.
And so we tend to gravitate towards people that have that extra piece that we're missing. And so that's how you see these partnerships form. You see people gravitating to get moving towards each other that can help each other, can build each other, and grow together. And I think that's one of the best ways to be successful in this business.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's move on to the real question number two. I know we had a lot of them in there. How do you decide which title, web designer or web developer, is most appropriate for you? And following up with that, does it matter?
Okay. The interesting thing about this question is that it brings to mind one thing. As web designers and developers, I think the biggest thing that we're concerned about is what Chris Lemmer calls an imposter syndrome. People tend to have this feeling of they're so concerned that somebody's going to find out that they're not something, or they can't do something, or they're not a master at A, B, or C. Um, and so it's that imposter syndrome where they feel like they shouldn't be in it. So we feel like we need to go out and gravitate, oh, I'm this title because I'm definitely not this title.
Yeah. So for me, it's okay. Pick one that fits the best because I do a little bit of everything. But when I really think about it, I'm more adept at the design side of things.
Yes. Yeah. And see, for me, it's like the totally different. It's totally different in what I feel like is best for me. Because what's that? Oh, sorry. I have this echo that's really okay. All right. Okay, so
Oh, that changed a lot.
did it? Okay,
Yeah.
good, good. All right. Now, all right, so for me, like I can work in Photoshop, I can work it out, Illustrator, but don't let me pick any colors. No. Okay, that is not my strength, okay? I can't choose colors.
But there's tools for that, you know.
Yes. And I prefer for a designer to tell me, okay, these are the colors that we want to use in this site or in this project. That's the best way for me to work, the best use of my time. I know um, I can use those tools to do what I need to do as a developer. So that's my strength. That's where I prefer to work. That's where I get the most value, and I provide the most value to my customers as a developer.
So, do you think the title really matters, or do you think do you pick one that you're if someone were to ask you, um, how do I decide if I want to be a web designer or a web developer, or what do I call myself? Am I a web designer? How would you answer that to somebody who is doing maybe building websites from start to finish? So they're kind of doing it all, but what do they call themselves?
That's a really good question. And I think first of all, there's no right or wrong answer for this. But my personal opinion is if you're creating a website and all you're doing is you're going out finding plugins to solve a problem, then you're not a developer. And that's my personal opinion. I feel as though if your client tells you a problem or asks you for something and your response is, oh, I can't do that or that can't be done simply because you don't know what plugin does it or simply because you don't know the code that's needed to get it done, you're not a developer.
Okay.
Okay? If you're going to ThemeForce and finding a theme and just slapping it on a website, I don't feel you're a designer.
Okay.
Okay? Um, so in that case, what do you call yourself? Maybe you're a consultant.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so a lot of things, it seems like a lot of things cross over from one thing to a next. And I think the important thing for anybody to evaluate when they're looking at themselves is, be as honest and open with your clients as you possibly can. And, if you can't do something, it's okay. Don't lie about it. Don't try to fake it. Just say, I don't know how to do that, but I know someone who does, and then find that person, or, you know, refer people, or it's, to me, the WordPress community, the great thing about the WordPress community is the ability to be able to share, because there is so much work out there and there's always somebody new coming who needs something else done. And as long as we all respect one another and treat one another the way we would like to be treated, then I think everybody's going to win.
Yeah, I think you make a great point there, Carrie. It's that it's a community effort. Um, and because we all need each other.
Yeah.
And that's how we grow. Someone may be great at marketing and they need a designer and a developer, or designers and developers. Someone may be a great designer and they need some developers. Someone may be a great developer, but they need designers and marketers. So it's just like any other thing in your business. I like to think of it as business 101. You're supposed to have these team of people for the different things that you need in your business, and it's just whichever one that you're not strongest at, or whichever one that you don't feel is the best use of your time, you should have someone on your team that handles that.
Okay. You want to move on to question 3?
Question 3, what are the top 5 tools you use as a designer or developer?
Ooh, that's a good one. I don't know that this would be considered a tool, but one of the best books I have ever read about design is Don't Make Me Think. And I can't recall who the author is at this point in time. I have the book somewhere around here, but I don't see it in front of me. But the book is fantastic in that it lays it out and approaches web design from the perspective of the user. And if you can apply that while you're designing a website, and ask your clients, how is this site going to be used, not only by you, the owner of the website, but how is it going to be used by the people who are visiting your website, you can really open your own eyes and see a lot of details. So that, I would say, is one of my favorite tools.
That's a great tool, Carrie. And the author of that book is Steve. I think his name is Krug. Is that how you pronounce it? Krug?
I think so.
Yeah, that's one of the books I actually keep very close to my desk.
I have it on my shelf. I can see it, but I can't read it from here.
Yeah. So, any other tools or books or recommendations, Carrie?
Well, I mentioned iThemes Builder. It does happen to be one of my favorite theme platforms to begin from. I do always create a child theme, and I personally like to make that theme as custom as I possibly can. I might grab some of the style and things that are in a number of other themes that iThemes has. But if I like the way something works, and works, when I say works, meaning like a transition or something within CSS, if I like an effect, then I might borrow that and add it in and do that. So Builder is definitely one of my most favorite designer tools. Let's see, what is another one? I'm gonna give just 3, and then I'll let you do some developer tools. Another tool that I like to use, I'm a Mac person, so I'm gonna say my Mac computer, of course. That kind of goes without saying. Everybody kind of needs one of those to do any kind of web design or development. But going a little bit farther, I do like the FTP and editor Coda to do my changes and things like that.
Okay.
Browsers, my favorite browser up until last week was Firefox, and then you talked me into trying Chrome. I'm still adjusting to Chrome. I haven't made a yay or nay. And it's really hard not to go back and do things fast the way I know how to do them, but I want to learn something new. So I don't know if those are really considered designer tools, but they definitely help me get through what I need to do. Oh, and GIMP. GIMP is another free image manipulator. It's very much and can do very many of the same things that Photoshop does, only it's free. So that would be another tool that I use on a regular basis. I think I got my 5.
Okay, all right, great. So, 5 tools that I use as a developer. I will say the first tool I'm going to start with is Sublime Text 3, my code editor that I use. I love Sublime Text. Live Reload, I love that too, even though I don't get to do a lot of CSS stuff these days, but when I do, I love using that Live Reload plugin for Sublime Text and Google Chrome. The other one that saves me a lot of headaches is Git version control. For version control, I use Git and Bitbucket. I do have some stuff on GitHub, but most of my client work, which is private, is on Bitbucket because they let you have unlimited private repositories for free.
Okay.
And then my other tools that, what else can I know? I love Google Chrome, the inspector developer tools for Google Chrome, the way that I can check for responsiveness, things like that. Also, I love WAMP, local development. WAMP is the way to go. I can have unlimited sites, and again, it is free. It does take a little bit of work to get set up, but not a lot. Just a little bit of know-how. I even wrote a book about it, Wamp It Up.
I
And when I'm
I've read the Mac version.
Yes, map it up. And I even use the Mac sometimes. Like, I'm one of those weird people that I have two machines. So I use my PC and my Mac for some things. I use the Mac a lot less because yes, I prefer my PC. Somebody told me that developers prefer PCs. I don't know how true that is.
That kind
Um,
of makes sense, actually.
so yeah,
Any books? Do you have any books that you use as maybe a reference or anything that is developer oriented?
developer-oriented books that I reference a lot. No, not really. I have the book for WordPress plugin development. It's a little old now. Um, and I think just it's strange because they don't make me think. I actually find myself referring back to that book a lot because sometimes during development I have to remind myself of certain things when it comes to usability.
Oh, cool.
Um, I like SitePoint Premium, I think it's called now, as a resource for a lot of tutorials for developers, keeping my skills up to date. Um, I like those. And then also, something I use a lot is Evernote.
Oh yeah, I use that too.
Yeah, because I
That's
like,
a great tool. Although I
yeah,
don't know if it's specifically for designers or developers, but it's definitely a great organizational tool.
yes, great for organization and for keeping up with information that I want to go back to again and again.
Yeah.
Um, and then Dropbox. Dropbox, I use that a lot. And it may not be just a developer specific tool, but it's a tool that I find myself using a lot when working with my clients. So, yeah.
Yeah, and on that same note, Copy. I use both Dropbox and Copy. They're both kind of the same. I ran out of space on one, so I got the other and got a whole bunch of free space. So,
Yeah, yeah.
all right. So let's see. Question number 4. Oh, can you name 5 skills or disciplines that cross over that are used in both design and development?
Ooh, okay. The first one that comes to mind is problem solving.
Okay.
That's a very important one for both the designer and the developer. You're trying to solve a problem.
Okay. I'm gonna go with HTML.
Okay.
Just basic HTML is good to know. I mean, it's a great starting point for a designer to be able to understand what is going on, and it's a great starting point for developers if you want to get into it from the beginning.
Yes, and I think you can add CSS to that as
Yeah,
well.
I would agree.
Um, and then also I think that the ability to maintain a project over time. So regardless of what it is, the ability to maintain that project, to keep up with it, where you are, what's been done, what has not been done.
That can be hard if you have a client that, you build a site for them and then they like disappear and like a year later they come and say, "Hey, can you fix my site?" and you haven't been in there in a year. It takes a while to catch up sometimes.
Yes, yes, it really does. One of the things that I found that's very helpful with that is creating like either a history log or like a README file for the client site, where like anytime you go in and you make any updates or you make any changes, you add what was done. And that way at least you know what you've done. You may not necessarily know what they've done, but you know what you've done.
Yeah, I don't do that in a history or a README file, but I do keep, I use another tool called Office Time, which is for Mac, and I write down what I do for each client, and I use that as my written record so that if they ever do come back, I can go back and let them know what has been done or hasn't been done. Also, I can use it as a to-do list and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool,
I had
cool.
another one. Um, oh, attention to detail is another thing that I think is a crossover skill.
Yes, that's very important.
As a designer, you are going to run into these particular clients who are going to care about a pixel here and a pixel there. At the same time, you must have attention to detail as a developer, especially if something's not working the way you expect it to, because it could be something as simple as a semicolon or a comma.
Yes, yes.
Well,
And then, have we hit our 5 yet? Because I have a very important one.
one more.
This is the most important skill that you must have, or discipline that you must have as a designer or developer. Okay?
I'm hoping you're going to say the same thing I'm thinking.
Patience.
Oh, it was close. It was close. I was going to say customer service, which they kind of go hand in hand. Yeah, I agree.
So, yes, yes. All right. So, yeah, because you have to be able to deal with people.
Yep.
Yeah, so, all right, so that's our 5 skills of discipline. So our next question, Kerry, what are some of the opportunities in being a designer or developer that have the greatest potential for business growth?
Yeah, we touched on that. We touched on that earlier. Wow, there's so many, and again, a lot of them do cross over and have a little bit of everything, but any one of the different areas of web design that we talked about, graphic design, user interface, writing copy, creating content, image manipulation, search engine optimization, on-page, any of these are different skills and disciplines that are huge right now, and everybody needs them, or anybody who has anything online needs them.
Yeah.
And you can develop an entire business around any one of those things, or you can even work as a project manager and help others to manage all of those things within a project.
Yes, yes.
So those are some for a designer. How about development?
Development, some of the potential business growth opportunities, product development, whether it's a plugin, theme, a SaaS product, which is a software as a service product. Also, a productized service, that's a big deal now, where you take your service that you provide and you kind of turn it into a product. And then you have also website maintenance can fall into that category, which can either be a designer or developer. And that's a whole nother into that category, which can either be a designer or developer. And that's a whole nother show by itself when talking about those types of things.
It sure is. It sure is.
And then you have the area where you do outsourcing or white label work for designers. Designers are looking for developers. And so that's a big opportunity. Big opportunities are the ones that I find are the focused opportunities. Let's say, for example, Kerry is the builder gal. Her thing is builder. So, like I work with a lot of people that use the builder theme. Okay, that's a big opportunity, area for growth, because there are designers that are working with builder the theme. There are customers that are using that theme that are not necessarily designers. Then you have the Genesis aspect. You have a whole community out there that they use Genesis, and they may want to tweak a Genesis child theme, or they want to create a new child theme for Genesis. That's a whole nother area of growth for your business.
Yeah, the really good things.
Yes.
Okay, so bottom line, for me, designers deal with the look and feel of websites.
Yeah, while developers deal with the functionality of the website.
Yeah, I think we've pretty much covered everything in tonight's topic. I do want to invite everybody to come over to 2dwebsolutions.com. You ask questions and we find answers or find solutions, and go ahead and ask us any questions, and the next time we have episode 2, we'll focus on some of the questions we received through there. Do you have anything else to add, Aletha?
I don't. I think that covers it. And until next time, look for solutions.
Absolutely. Good night.
Good night.